Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you for another episode of what is our coverage of Arsenal's transfer window. Slightly different show this morning for you because this is another pre-recorded episode. I'm back in the office today, and so that means, unfortunately, I can't do the show as I usually would. And so I didn't want to leave you without a show. So it means that I'm here instead recording one very late on Thursday evening, hoping and praying that once again no news drops. Now, let's bear in mind the last time I did this, a certain Declan Rice was kind of he was announced. In short, he was announced. So I'm expecting Arsenal to have, like, I don't know, signed Mbappe or something overnight whilst I've been doing this show. However, I did manage to do the show late enough to get what I hope is the biggest news of the evening, of which we'll come on to in a little bit. But if you haven't done so already, please do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Without further ado, though, let's crack on with today's stories. First of all, talking about Arsene Wenger, visited his statue at the Emirates Stadium. He then spoke at an event inside the ground with people in attendance like Ray Parlour, Marquinhos. I noticed that Josh Kroenke was also there from the images that I've seen posted on social media. So it seems that there was a real tribute to the man himself. As I said on yesterday's show, I managed to have the absolute honour of meeting him at the stadium on Wednesday night after the game against Monaco, and that will be certainly something I cherish forever. But it's a very impressive statue, and certainly I think one of the best, if not the best, outside the ground amongst the likes of Henry, Bergkamp, and of course Tony Adams as well. Yes, very, very nice statue indeed. Moving into transfers, though, and Mika Birath has joined Motherwell on loan. He will leave the club and make that switch. Obviously, I think it's a positive one. 20-year-old striker spent time at RKC Waalwijk last season in the Netherlands and had a decent, time there. Scored a couple of goals, got a few appearances, but he needed to continue to kind of develop himself as a senior player. And we obviously signed him from Fulham, where he scored loads of goals at youth level. But now playing at senior level, he needs to find his feet, needs to find some consistency and some minutes. And hopefully he'll get that at Motherwell this season. Speaking of loans as well, Marquinhos, as we talked about previously, linked with a loan move to Olympiacos, and certainly that deal is continuing to be talked about in the background. However, according to Santi, Una Nantes have also entered the race for Marquinhos, so it's not going to be a straight shot for the Greek Giants, and instead they are going to have to battle with some other sides for the honour, if you like, of getting Marquinhos on loan for next season. So whatever happens, I'm hoping that it's a really strong destination for Marquinhos. I hope that he's guaranteed minutes. I hope that he gets game time. I hope that he takes that opportunity by the scruff of the neck and has a full season at a club where he can kind of settle more, get into a bit of a rhythm and play. And if he can get plenty of minutes on the field, then either comes back to Arsenal as a potential option, or of course raises his value significantly so Arsenal can sell him on. And speaking of players that we allow to leave on loan and raise their value to sell them on for a profit, that is exactly what Austin Trustee has done, because his move to Sheffield United was indeed confirmed, and he will become a brand new player in the Premier League with Sheffield United. Arsenal will have to indeed face Trustee next season, earning Arsenal a figure in the region of £5 million, meaning that they've more than trebled what they paid Colorado Rapids just over 18 months ago. So some really good business by Arsenal, getting a decent figure in for a player that really was not on the cards for us, and I've sold him for a figure that will get them some profit and look very good on the books. And still there are discussions over Nicolas Pepe potentially leaving the club as well. The Ivorian international spent time, as we know, last season with Nice, but wasn't able to establish himself there, although injuries were a significant issue. He missed the US tour and any pre-season games for Arsenal with continuation of those injury problems, and there are suggestions that there will be discussions over a termination of his contract. Besiktas are the club in Turkey that are interested in the player. Despite there being suggestions that there could be a figure involved in this move, it does seem, and as I have predicted for some time, that he will be one of the last contract agreements in terms of terminations. A huge loss on what Arsenal paid back in 2019, £72 million deal. player leaving for nothing, having contributed a very restricted amount in his first season and a bit before leaving, of course, for that loan to Nice. It's just not worked out for Nicolas Pepe at all, which is a real shame. But hopefully he finds success in the next stage of his career. And the headline story, as I talked about, I managed to do this show late enough so that I could witness the breaking news. I'm speaking to you with it being breaking news of David Raya. Arsenal have submitted their first bid for the player. The proposal is said to be at a £20 million fixed fee with £3 million in add-ons. Now, we've said before that Brentford supposedly wanted something closer to 40 million. Thomas Frank has been speaking, rather frankly, about the fact that he would like to see 40 million pounds made on a potential deal that saw David Raya leave the club. The benefit that Arsenal have is that he has told Brentford that he wants to move to Arsenal, and of course that 1 year left on his deal makes this a advantageous position from a buying perspective. But I may be proven wrong by the time this show comes out tomorrow morning, but I'd be surprised if that £23 million in total was accepted. And I think that Brentford will indeed hold out for a much bigger fee. Considering someone like Robert Sanchez is leaving Brighton for Chelsea for around £25 million, and Raya is a significantly better goalkeeper than him. If Raya was to leave for less than that £25 million, it would be a significant I don't use the word embarrassing, but it would be a very low fee for what the player he's worth. And I think Arsenal and Brentford will probably come to a compromise closer to £30 million, but let's wait and see what happens. But the opening bid of 20 million plus 3 is in. The negotiations are firmly underway, and hopefully we get a resolution around this deal in the very near future. Of course, we hope that we can resolve plenty of your safety and security issues whilst you surf the net online, and you can indeed do that by using NordVPN. NordVPN gives you the ability to stay safe and secure whilst you are using the World Wide Web by giving you the access to things that protect you from trackers like tracker blockers. They give you malware protection, ad blockers as well. It's one of those things that you need if you're online in 2023. You need to have a VPN, and Nord provide an excellent service that you can get a discount for by using our own link. If you go to www.nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or 2 year plan. Link is down in today's video description. So don't miss out on your opportunity to get an advantageous addition to your technical wizardry. Right, let's move to part 2 and your questions right after this. Now, I did say questions. However, I did want to touch upon the Aaron Ramsdale interview, which, of course, was not necessarily an interview. It was actually an article written by the man himself in the Players' Tribune. Now, many people should be familiar with the Players' Tribune's work. They've done a fair few things that we've seen. Martin Odegaard, most recently, had a really good talk and discussion and reveal about his journey, about his childhood, about how he developed in Norway, and then obviously that had that big move to Real Madrid before finally settling with Arsenal. Well, that was a fantastic piece of work, as was the interview that they did with Granit Xhaka as well, and that was a very revealing interview and discussion too. But Aaron Ramsdale did things slightly differently, where he told his story in his own words, and he talked about his family, he talked about the abuse, he talked about his time at Arsenal, he talked about Mikel Arteta and some really revealing things, including disagreements with the manager, which is, I think, very, very normal. But I wrote a piece on football.london, which you can give a read. It is one of the most recent articles on my page. You can always go to the link tree in the video descriptions to visit my football.london profile page. And on there, you'll be able to see an article that is headlined, Aaron Ramsdale, honesty hits the perfect spot for Arsenal amid continuing social challenges. And everyone that knows and watches this channel will know that talking about social things and talking about online abuse is always at the forefront of discussions. We tackle it head on. We suggest ways in which you can help and that you can kind of have strategies to deal with these things if you ever suffer things online. And to hear Aaron talk about that side of things in the way that he did was really grounded and certainly very appreciated. His honesty regarding his family was eye-opening, saddening, as well. But really, really important, and in some ways, I think groundbreaking as well. I talk in the article about my own interactions with Aaron whilst working Football London, speaking to him in Mix Zone, speaking to him at London Colney, and he's always one of the best when it comes to speaking to a player. Very grounded, very objective, answers questions really, really well, gives you honest answers, not just kind of sometimes you can tell when an answer is like a media trained type response, which I understand why media training happens, and it's really important that players get media trained. But also, I think that when you get a real kind of genuine answer from a player, Ramsdale is one of the obvious candidates to produce those types of answers. Spoke to me after the game against Manchester City at the Etihad Stadium, when obviously we'd been well beaten and had 4 goals put past him, and he took the time to stop and to speak and to give us, and therefore indirectly through us to the fans, messages and responses to that performance. And yeah, again, I just want to be very open and honest and thankful to Ramsdale for that piece, because I'm hoping that it will have a significant impact. Also, his work with Hope United. We've collaborated with Hope United as well. Myself and Sophie did a show talking all about homophobia in football. But it's not just homophobia that Hope United tackle. They do lots of stuff to do with online abuse. They provide strategies and tips and techniques about how you can tackle those problems should you need to. So I would always recommend looking into the Hope United stuff, because it is absolutely brilliant. And to have any involvement in that campaign that Ramsdale is a big part of was a real pleasure. So you can go listen back to that if you want to just type in on YouTube, the Gooner Talk Hope United. You'll get that show come up with me and Sophie, where we talk at length about online abuse, about the homophobia that sadly Sophie's had to suffer, and the strategies that we come up with to help people try and deal with those things. So certainly do give that a listen. Right then, as this is pre-recorded, obviously it does mean that I can't go to the chat box for questions, which is frustrating. What I would say is, for those of you that, if you've got any burning questions, leave a capital Q in the comment section. So that's not the live show chat that's going on right now, but if you've got a question that you would like an answer to, I can do my best to answer them in text form throughout the day when I'm on my lunch break. So I'll try and tackle those when I can. So leave them down in the comment section below. But I do, as I do when I do these preview shows, pre-recorded shows, is I reach out to the Discord server, where we've got plenty of our members ready and waiting to provide some questions for the show. So let's tackle those. NSW says, Tom, with Jesus out for a reported few weeks, should we still sell Balogun? And do you think Trossard can play in that role along with Nketiah? Well, the answer to the second part of the question, I think, is one that we already have an answer to, because Trossard has indeed played in that position and played very successfully in that position. I remember when he played that game against Fulham, where he got a hat-trick of assists, played amazingly well, and to be honest, probably deserved to keep that role, despite the fact that Gabriel Jesus returned from injury in that game against Fulham, and that was kind of the start of the end for Trossard's time at centre forward. For me, Trossard should have kept that position. Jesus should have gradually worked his way back into the starting lineup if he'd have earned it, but Trossard was doing a fantastic job and shouldn't have been taken out. So I know that Trossard can be a fantastic option for us in that role. Should we still sell Balogun? Ultimately, the situation is as is, and we've discussed this at length a number of times, but the way in which it's gone down, the comments that we've heard from him, the reports that we are hearing suggesting that he is pushing to obviously leave and asking Arsenal to reduce their asking valuation for him, I think that, yes, we still do, but I think we need to respond to that with a forward signing. Now, I think that forward signing should be something versatile, someone that can play in a right wing and centre forward position. And Mohamed Kudus obviously fits that bill. So if we was to choose a player to sign for the club, Mohamed Kudus, I think, would be the obvious answer. Nav asked the question, do you think that we should give Eddie a chance to prove what he can do? I do feel like we've given him a lot of chances. As with Eddie, I feel bad for him when it comes to the abuse that he gets off people. But personally, I don't think he's going to hit those heights. Same time, I'm willing to give him that chance, that he looked good yesterday, and maybe that was a confidence booster. I would still potentially start Trossard as our main centre forward, but I think it would be great to see Eddie prove people, even myself, wrong. I think Eddie will be given a chance. I think Mikel Arteta is certainly aiming to give him an opportunity to play. I think that we did our preview show yesterday. If you haven't watched our preview show for the Community Shield, please go back and do that. Myself, Lewis, and Dom all chatted about that game. So do go back and give that a listen. But and so I do think that Nketiah will start that game on Sunday. But when it comes down to his future, he just has to change the conversation. At the moment, the conversation is very much, how do you feel about stepping into Jesus? How do you feel about covering Jesus? How do you feel about the fact that, you did this last season when Jesus was out and you got to do it again? He needs to change that conversation to Eddie Nketiah. He needs to be the focus of the conversation. He cannot be the backup. He cannot be the second choice, the deputy. He has got to put in performances like he did against Monaco, in which he had a really, really good game. And for those that think otherwise, go look at my not pinned tweet, but it's one of the high up tweets on my feeds, or posts, I suppose they are these days. But if you go onto the posts on my feed at the Gooner Talk TV, there is a compilation of his contributions in that game against Monaco, which will show you just how good of a game he did have. And people go, well, it's a highlight reel. No, it's every single action that he was involved in during that game, and it's very impressive. So I would go give it a watch if you can spare, I think, a minute and a bit, if that, 3 minutes or so. Max, go give that a watch. But yeah, he needs to change the conversation to making it about him and not about him being used because someone else is not available. He needs to take that spot, and when Jesus comes back, he needs to try and keep that spot. So that's what Eddie needs to do. Alpha Wolf Dan says, what do you think Arteta's targets will be this season in each of the competitions based on the summer recruitment? I personally think that his targets will be to win them. I think that he will be going into every single competition, as any Arsenal manager should, thinking, we got to try and win this tournament, because that is the Arsenal way. Now, we can have discussions about expectations, around what I have for the club's expectations are, and they are going to be different to the aims I have for Arsenal. The aim for Arsenal, the target for Arsenal, is always to try and win the FA Cup, win the League Cup, win the Champions League, win the Premier League. That's the target. That's the aim. The expectation, as we talk about the difference between those words, is obviously different. And I think that in the League Cup, he'll be looking to use the kids where possible and give rotatable options time on the field. But in the FA Cup, if it is against a competitive Premier League level opposition, I think we'll see a Premier League level team. I think that the FA Cup has a great history with this club. And so therefore Arsenal will try and succeed in that tournament, and fingers crossed that we do. And in the Premier League, he'll look to go one step further than he did last season, but close the gap to Manchester City as best we can and try to overtake them. And in the Champions League, I think it's going to be an exciting season for the Champions League. Let's see what we can do in that tournament. Let's see what Arsenal can achieve in the Champions League, in a tournament where I do think we are within the top 5 or 6 clubs in that competition. So I'm hoping for quarterfinals and beyond, but let's see. Question from Gooner Cowboy. This preseason, the results of the games and our style of play has been up and down compared to last year's pre. Do you think Arteta is trying to get the whole squad ready so he can rotate the squad and hopefully be firing on all cylinders in May, or do you think there is a cause for concern ahead of the new season? I think that what you said first, Gooner Cowboy, is spot on. I think that we've got such a big squad full of competitive options that he has to give time to as many players as feasible possible. If you think about last season, we pretty much played the same 11 in the last 3 odd games. Sevilla, like it was it Chelsea and Everton. I think we played similar teams across those games. Really, like a few changes for both, but for these games, we've made wholesale changes. I think we're now in a position where obviously we can be proactive in making changes, proactive in rotation, and he needs to make sure that everything is ready and raring to go. And I hope that's going to be the case. I hope that is going to be the case for us moving forwards, that we are successfully rotating. And I'm not saying that I'm not going to say that it's a concern because it's only pre-season. Have there been lessons to be learned from? For sure. Have there been things that have need to be developed? Absolutely. But I'm not concerned. No. I just think that with the depth of squad, the level of quality and strength and depth that we've got, it was always going to be important that Arteta use as much of his squad as feasibly possible. Last one, I think, from Pierre Monguna Paul says, Woods, Smith Rowe being more reliable in a defensive department than Ødegaard. So in my opinion, he would be better in the right 8 when Kai is playing the left 8, and Ødegaard would be better option when playing with Rice and Partey. Interesting question. I do think that Smith Rowe has got more defensive characteristics from his time playing on the left wing, because you have to cover the left back when you play there. Would it mean he's a better partner for Kai Havertz than Odegaard? I'm not sure. I think Odegaard is of a level above Smith Rowe personally. I think Smith Rowe is a great player. And by saying that Odegaard's a level above him, it shows you how highly I rate Odegaard. I put him in a world-class category personally. So when it comes down to who partners who, I think we've got options. And I think it'll be interesting to see if Smith Rowe and Havertz ever play together, if Smith Rowe plays instead of Odegaard. I do think that Smith Rowe is probably seen as the competitor to Odegaard. So if Odegaard's not playing, I think Smith Rowe will play there. And obviously against Monaco in the Emirates Cup, that is exactly where Smith Rowe played. So I think that's definitely an option for us moving forwards. Just to round off the show, of course, to remind you that our live show tickets are still on sale. You can come join us at the Mildmay Club in London on the Sunday, 13th of August. Some fantastic guests. You can scan that code or go to the link in the description. And not only that, but tonight, Friday, the 4th of August, I'm going to be at the Tollington helping and supporting Mike with the Gooners versus Cancer. There's going to be lots of familiar faces there, I'm assured. So I look forward to getting down there for that and having a couple of drinks and speaking to people and enjoying a nice Friday evening with some fellow Gooners. So if you're around, if you're in the London area on either today or on the 13th of August, the day after the Nottingham Forest match, then get down there. If not, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday morning for the next show. But other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, as it always is. Apologies that this wasn't a normal live show, but I hope you appreciate the effort that goes into making a show anyway for you guys to enjoy. I'm hoping that it's come through smoothly and fine throughout. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. If you have any questions that you are really desperate to ask and were sad that I weren't around in the live show section to answer them, drop them down in the comment section down below and I'll do my best to get back to you on them. But have a fantastic day, people. Enjoy the end of your week. And as always, up the Arsenal.